Hey, so thank you all for being here and for choosing our topic to attend. I know there are other choices available, so thank you for choosing us. We are going to be talking about the future of platform engineering, as Divya just described. We've got about 40 minutes, so I'll try to keep us on track, and then we'll hopefully have some time for questions from the audience, so get your thinking caps on. I'm going to start by setting just a little bit of context for this discussion, and then we're going to dive in with our amazing panelists. So, platform engineering, one of those super hyped buzzwords that we keep hearing a lot of these days. It's not actually that new, the work itself, but the word is certainly becoming quite popular. Where we are seeing innovation is around some of the tooling and the practices and really what it means to build a good platform. So whilst the work doesn't seem that new, there's a lot of kind of innovation still happening. It's quite a fast-moving field. So I put up a quote here from Gartner. Gartner have said that by 2026, which is scarily soon, next year, 80% of large software engineering organizations will have established platform engineering teams. But from last year's State of DevOps report from DORA, they indicated that this is actually already happening. So they found that 80% of organizations are already using some form of internal developer platform. So the long and short of it, there's platforms everywhere, there are platform engineering teams everywhere. But also from Gartner, in one of their recent hype cycles, they had platform engineering kind of near the peak. You can see it circled in red up there, which raises the question, what's going to happen next, right? Because looking at that graph, you can see a long, steep slope into the trough of disillusionment. So, what does that mean? Does that mean that we are facing an imminent crash? Are we going to see platform engineering becoming unpopular? Or are we going to see it continue to evolve and mature? So, those are the topics that we are going to be diving into for the next little while. I am going to introduce our panelists once again, just in case you didn't catch the intros from Divya. So we have got Shweta, who is from Booking.com. She is an author, inventor, over 20 years of experience in the industry. She's working for Booking.com. She's also the author of the best-selling book, Decoding Platform Patterns, which is available in all good bookshops and Amazon. But she's got lots of distilled information in there about her experience in this field. Nikki, CEO, CTO of OpenCredo, who are part of the Trifork group, if you've not heard of OpenCredo. They are a pragmatic, hands-on software consultancy specializing in platform and data engineering. Nikki herself is a techie at heart, even though she's had lots of different roles in her career, and she is also an author and regular conference speaker. And we have Lena, who is a senior engineer at Chainalysis, blockchain data platform. She's at the coalface of improving developer productivity and developer experience, and has a strong focus on reducing friction and cognitive load for the Chainalysis developers. And finally me. So I'm Paula Kennedy, COO, co-founder of a company called Syntasso. We make Kratix, which is an open source framework for building internal developer platforms. I'm also an Open UK ambassador, and now the proud owner of a blue plaque as of this morning, so that was quite exciting. So enough info and context, let's get stuck in. Hopefully I've got some nice spicy questions for the panel. I want to start off by understanding current state of play. Before we talk about the future, let's understand where we are today. So, what are some of the problems that platform engineering is trying to solve, and how is it going so far? Let's talk about kind of what is platform engineering trying to help with? And Nikki's got the mic, so let's start there.
Sure thing. So I think one of the big things that platform engineering is really trying to solve is the fact that, developers, there's a lot of what you would hear as cognitive overload for developers. They're having to deal with a lot of trying to spin up infrastructure, trying to deal with a lot of different things, and unable to actually spend the time that's required to actually build the key components that are needed in order to actually build and send software out there to the end users. So platform engineering is, I would say, maybe an evolution of DevOps that looks to try and take some of the heavy lifting away from the developers and says, well, actually, let's do that for you so you can concentrate on just building the software that gets shipped out to the users. So it's one of the key sort of areas, I think, on platform engineering is to take that cognitive load away from the developers and make it easier for them to actually spin up their infrastructure and those type of things. I think another area is around standardization. So there are hundreds of tools out there. Everywhere you go, a different team is trying to spin up the environments in Amazon and using Terraform or CloudFormation or something different. So platform engineering is also looking at trying to bring some kind of standardization so that there's a paved path or a sensible way to move forward so that we can move forward as an engineering group.
Cool, thank you. What about you, Lena? I mean, you're in that sort of, you're in a platform engineering team, right? So are you seeing, what are you trying to solve for on a daily basis?
Absolutely. I mean, everything that you said, Nikki, resonates. I think I would probably put slightly different words on it, perhaps because I'm seeing it maybe from a slightly different perspective. But the key words that I would use would be that we're trying to be a multiplier. And I think platform is perfectly placed to be that multiplier for the rest of engineering. So we try and look at those common perhaps drudge tasks that you're doing kind of repetitively, and how can we abstract those away so that, and remove the cognitive load, so that you're not doing them repetitively and it's not a time sink, so we can contribute to being that engineering multiplier. And then I've forgotten the other bit. But yeah, so essentially it is that, and I think so the word that I was going to use was alignment. And so absolutely, so we have, so particularly at Chainalysis, it was a startup and it's very much kind of scaling up, and is a scale up now, but what we're looking at is a landscape where engineers have had a lot of autonomy, and we have many tools, but for platform to actually be able to contribute and be that multiplier, we have to create that alignment, and we need to find that commonality again.
Sure. So you've talked a bit about how platform engineering helps with kind of developers' cognitive load, standardization within kind of the org, particularly around tooling. What about on the business challenges? Shweta, I wanted to ask you about how is platform engineering helping to meet business goals, like as opposed to just kind of the engineering goals?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked me, because I was about to say that I'll give a different perspective on this. According to me, one of the biggest challenge our industry is going today is our fragmented technology ecosystem. We are rapidly evolving, constantly updating, and we are fragmented. And on top of that, beyond this, we are dealing with the ever-evolving business models. So where is platform engineering helping us in abstracting at least two of these problems, if not all? It should definitely be managing the fragmented technology for us, and keeping pace with the evolving constant updates which businesses deal with. So if platform engineering is not doing this task of hiding away the technology complexity, I think it's not meeting its genuine purpose and aim, according to me. So that's where I would say that platform engineering is meant for and should meet that purpose.
Okay, so following on from that, how do we then measure success in that kind of world? And then I'll ask the others, but how would you measure success? Is platform engineering delivering what it should be delivering right now?
Shall I give short answer first?
Sure.
No, it's not today meeting the full need of the things which we should measure. I think today we are measuring the adoption. We should measure the impact of platform engineering sooner. Now, let me give a detail or a few more points on that to support my answer on that. If we are not accelerating the digital transformation and slowing it down, maybe we are not measuring the right thing. If we are not giving the experience to the engineers and for those people for whom we are building this platform, maybe we are not meeting there. So we need to measure that experience as well. We need to stop treating our internal platforms or all these platform engineering stuff as the secondary stuff. We need to treat it, mirror it like any business platform. Apart from that, the most important measure, I would say, which I should actually call at the first place, is see if it is a platform in the first place. Is it a real platform meeting those standards? Otherwise, any application would be a platform. No. every abstraction is not a platform. So a platform on namesake and platform on reality should be differentiated, and that's what the first thing we should measure.
Okay, interesting. So, Lena, what are you measuring right now? Like, do you have a dashboard? Are you reporting to people? What kind of measures are you looking at when you're judging success, or how are you being judged?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, funnily enough, one of the first key measures that we are measured on is adoption. But I think that's a proxy for making sure that we're actually delivering solutions that our engineers want. And without perhaps kind of deeper qualitative information or surveys, we're not able to find that information quickly. So, yeah, we look at certainly adoption and usage, but also we do use that qualitative feedback. So we are getting, if the general feedback that we're getting from our engineers to the products that we are providing is positive, then that's something that we'll go for. But I think it's actually quite difficult. All of the measures, I think, for platform tend to be proxies. So we can measure, how quickly teams are deploying, but it's on our pipelines. But it's still another team deploying. It's not us.
Sure. It's interesting. I've been listening to a few podcasts recently about DORA versus SpaceX versus Core4 versus DevX. There were so many frameworks out there for measuring, and it's hard to know even which one to start with. I know, Nikki, you gave a great talk at KubeCon last year about the kind of platform engineering maturity model and how to kind of apply that to organizations. What kind of things are you seeing in terms of measurement?
Yeah, well, I actually just wanted to pick up on exactly what you said. One of the things I think that we found is that you need to have a variety of measures. That you can't really have just one thing. So I think there's the quantitative measures, so things like the DORA metrics, which are maybe slightly easier to measure. And then you've got SPACE, which is a little bit more in the sort of developer experience side of things. But something which, and it was the DX people, so the Core4 framework, which actually, there was a statement which Laura made. They talk about, I think it's oppositional metrics.
Yeah, tension metrics.
Tension metrics.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
this is something I really, really picked up on and really like. And it's basically having a look at not just measuring one area so you over-index. So, for example, maybe your goal is to measure speed, but you don't want to measure speed at the expense of quality. So you need to have both speed and quality and maybe your developer experience, a measure of these things and measure them all at the same time so that you can actually figure out if one is going higher but the other one is suffering, that actually there's a problem there. And so I actually think you need a combination of ways to measure and not just pick just DORA or just SPACE or one of those areas. And the other thing I'd just like to say is you need to know, I'd say figure out what your goal is first, because different platforms have different goals. So some platforms, some teams and some organizations maybe are very security focused, and their entire reason for building the platform, which you can argue whether that's good or not, is to enforce security and bring standards. And that there might be different measures for that as opposed to improving developer productivity. So different metrics, you need different metrics depending on what your goal is. So you need to know what the goal is and then measure the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It was an interesting to think about those kind of measures and that tension. I like that from Laura from GetDX. Okay, so I was going to ask a question about what's not working with platform engineering right now, but it feels like maybe there's quite a few things that are not working right now. So maybe we should think about what we want to do next, right? So we've already looked at the Gartner graph, and we've kind of seen that we potentially have this trough of disillusionment coming our way. What are we seeing right now? Are we already seeing some challenges? Shweta's already said that we're not seeing necessarily the business outcomes kind of being driven that we're expecting. What other things are going kind of wrong right now that you could point to? Or like, what's the biggest thing that you worry about right now in this space?
All right, I'll start. So this is something I've been banging on for a while about, so it's not necessarily new. But I would say one of the biggest challenges that we still see in this space is that when platform teams come about, they still aren't treating the platform as a product. It's still being treated as a team which is doing technology stuff, and you've got tools, and there's a heavy focus on the tooling side of things and Kubernetes and all of these wonderful things, but they're not actually treating the platform as a product. And I think it's that mindset change that I see over and over again in many of the organizations that I go to that is still problematic, that has not been solved. Even though we say it's important, the message still does not seem to be getting through. So for me, that's one of the areas that I think is still really a challenge, actually. I don't know if you find the same.
Absolutely. I think I had a big grin on my face when you said it, because it is definitely. I think it's the biggest problem that I think we face in platform engineering at the moment, but I also think it's our biggest opportunity. So in every platform meetup that I go to, and if you start the conversation about, should you have product owners or product managers on a team, it's always a controversial subject. People feel very strongly about it, I think. But I think we're certainly starting to see the benefits of looking at platform as a product and approaching it with a product mindset. And I actually think that's where we'll see our main benefits, is starting to look at it from a much more customer-centric perspective, with individuals that have those skills.
There was an interesting blog that Sam Newman put out. I think it was, I want to say last year, but then we were another year, so probably more than a year ago. But he talked about when you call your team a platform engineering team, it's almost nominative determinism, where they then think their job is to build a platform for a platform's sake, not considering that product mindset of you're building a platform to serve somebody, like for someone to use that platform. And he sort of argued, I think tongue-in-cheek, for let's not call them platform engineering teams, because then they're just going to build platforms, and that's not really the end game. That's not the goal. Shweta, what sort of thing are you most worrying about right now in this kind of platform space, or what's the biggest challenge that you see right now?
Yeah, completely agree on the technology mindset more currently prevalent in the platform engineering space, whereas that's not the reality. Reality is still a lot of organizations dealing with the hybrid cloud state. What it means, we have legacy systems, we have complex workflows, siloed processes, and a lot to deal with in that space. Is platform engineering giving us relief from those and working for those realities? No. So in my mind, this is one major area and gap. Somebody needs to look into that reality, build platforms for that reality, engineer accordingly, and of course give something which is scalable, can be governed, work for these complex workflows. Unfortunately, I have not seen any product yet in market which deals with these complexities. So would be really interested and would like to say that more innovation needed to bring business closer to our platform engineering space.
Okay, well, we've done a little bit of noodling on current state. Let's start thinking about future state. So you mentioned about kind of technology. And we're here at an open source conference. So let's have a little talk about what do we see on the technical side kind of in the future. Are we going to see more open source solutions? Are we going to see more people doing DIY build your own platforms? Are we going to see more SaaS kind of vendor solutions? Are we going to see all of the above? What do we think on the tech side of things and the tooling? What do we think is going to happen? It doesn't matter if you get it wrong.
Pattern open source solutions we are seeing. There's a lot of permutation and combinations around the open source tooling going on. And that's where we are dealing with this technology mindset first, rather than abstracting that technology is what the platforms should achieve. DIY solution is, according to me, winning, because I've seen most of the organization, including our organization, leaning towards building our own stuff, our own platforms. Why? Because this gives us flexibility. Somewhere engineers want to handle and learn and introduce AI on their own terms. So strictly giving them some abstraction which just hides away all the internals from them doesn't work for them. So one is flexibility, abstraction, and a bit of governance with decentralization, and that thing is working more in DIY space according to me. And lastly, about SaaS product, it will be very interesting to see any SaaS product which earlier, as I said, dealing with those realities. If it comes up, it will be a game changer, but yet to see it.
Sure. What about you, Lena? What do you think? I mean, engineers are going to engineer, right? I feel like DIY is always going to be a thing.
I think it's always going to be the number one option, but certainly in my experience, platform teams are not huge. And there is I think there's limited time, so we have to prioritize. So I think very much I would see, certainly in my area, moving towards kind of adopting existing kind of open source tooling, but perhaps ones that are a bit flexible that you can extend, and perhaps put that a little bit more of a personal wrapper, a more organisation specific wrapper. Although I do see a lot more kind of vendors moving into the platform engineering space, and certainly as it gains momentum, if it's going to save time and both in terms of effort of building and maintainability, I can certainly see that as an area that would grow within platform engineering.
Okay, so maybe more vendors. Nikki, what do you think about kind of consolidation? Do we think we're going to see tools, more consolidation on our industry? Because, I mean, right now you look at that CNCF landscape and it feels like it's been expanding for a long time in terms of Kubernetes tooling and tooling around platform engineering and all the different parts to build a platform. Do we expect to see some kind of consolidation of tooling in the future, some reduction of tooling? I mean, or do we think there's just going to keep on being more and more solutions put out there?
I think it's a difficult one to answer, to be honest, because there's lots of good tools out there, and sometimes different tools work for different types of situations. So I'm not sure that will fully disappear, if I'm perfectly honest. However, I do think that there will probably be one or two that will probably become a little bit more prominent, that are more helpful in certain situations. So I think, maybe coming a little bit back to what we were saying earlier, I think there may well be SaaS offerings that are actually quite helpful. Maybe they build on some of the open source tools, but for organizations that are just starting out or that are actually quite small, it's really easy for them to get up and running. And so making use of them might be one sort of tool set which is quite different to actually, if I'm going to be building this myself in a larger organization, I'm going to be pulling from a lot of different things. So I think it really depends on your organization, the context, the size. But I do think that there's probably be one or two sort of areas where the tooling will consolidate in the future.
Okay, and you mentioned about kind of context is key, I guess, with organizations. Moving away from that, the technical side for a minute, what do we predict is going to happen with kind of organizational patterns? Because you mentioned platform as a product. How will we see that manifest in terms of org charts or organizational structures?
Mm-hmm. So I think depending on, again, maybe how big the organization is, the teams and the way they are constructed will look different, because I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all. So what we find is when teams are starting out, when you're a little bit smaller, you may have one platform team. So just to start off, it's a lot easier to get going. There's no friction, and that's one of the things with team topologies, trying to reduce that friction. But the bigger you get, and the more surface area you're trying to cover, it becomes a little bit impossible, I think, for you to have, for example, one platform team. And so I think from an organizational perspective, you may find that you get platform teams that are maybe looking at different types or areas within the platform. So building in terms of layers, I've seen examples where you've had a team that focuses really just on the infrastructure layer, and they just literally handling the AWS, the GCP, and the storage and all that type of stuff. And then you've got another platform team which sits and builds on top of that, and maybe builds a slightly more specific platform for the AI and the data people, and somebody else is building a different platform for the microservices people. Mm-hmm. So I would say that organizationally, I think there might be more platform teams, actually, as we go forward. You might have different areas focusing on different things.
It's interesting you mentioned team topologies because Matthew Skelton, who's one of the authors of the book, he mentioned at FastFlow Conf last year, I think it was last year's one, somebody asked him the question, what have you learned since you published the book, Team Topologies? And he said one thing he's learned, it's 5 years, it was published 2018. I can't do math. Anyway, it's some time ago it was published. Someone asked him, what have you learned since publishing the book? And his answer was, along those lines. He basically said that when they wrote the book, they talked about streamline team, platform team, complicated subsystem team, enabling team. And in reality, there's not just one platform team. That's the thing he's learned. And so he's talking in terminology more like platform grouping is what he's been talking about more recently. Exactly to your point, that there's not just kind of one platform team. Interesting. So, Lena, what are you seeing? I mean, I don't know how big Chainalysis is, but like how many platform teams do you have in your organization now?
I don't think I could tell you. I don't know.
And what do you imagine could happen in the future?
I mean, it's very interesting. I mean, listening to you, Nikki, I mean, we're effectively a platform team within a data platform organisation, so it feels like we're nested anyway. So a lot of the teams actually within Chainalysis are platform teams of some description.
Just platform teams all the way down, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Is that going to maintain that? Is it going to stay that way? Does everyone become a platform engineer?
Well, perhaps they do, and I think it's a great person. It's a great role, so yeah, why not? I'd be a great advocate for that. But I think it is as you grow, one as an organisation, but also two as a team. There are only so many things that an individual could do or a small group of people can do. So you naturally specialise, and I would see that hopefully as platform engineering continues to grow, you will have much more kind of specific platform engineers, whether you'd have, observability or, various other types of tooling, perhaps a team that deals with the IDP. But yeah, absolutely, I think that's the way to go.
Thank you. And Shweta, how about you? What do you kind of imagine the future looks like in an organisation like yours, like Booking.com? In the future, will there be more platform teams, fewer platform teams? What the impact of AI might have on the platform teams? Like, what do you kind of see might happen?
Yeah, I'll answer it with two examples. I worked with a bank where I saw that there was a CTO team which was rigged up, and we said that, the organization said that, okay, you will be the central team who will come up with the API-based platform. And this team, left, right, center, worked and created policies, the governance around it, and this is the way the platform will work. And then they said that, go and use it. Nobody used it. Over the years, it faded.
Build it and they will come, and no one came, right?
No one came, and nobody, they tried enforcing it top to bottom, but it never worked. They had big presence in US and UK and, of course, other parts of the geography, but it never worked. And the team faded, but that never worked. On other hand, I worked for an automotive company where they did a smart thing. They, rather than centrally enforcing, they created certain capabilities around these platforms, around API, around data, around compute, and even AI. So they provided it as democratized capabilities. And initially, people pushed it, but gradually they saw the value in it rather than each individual of them doing it, and it picked up really well. So when I left, it was like a couple of groups were already picking it up and doing it. So I think, and in a good amount, if not in great detail, I have detailed it out in the book also, which I have written, Decoding Platform Patterns. Centralized will not work. Decentralized alone will also not work. So you need decentralized but centrally governed, a bit of democratization. I think that's the path forward I'm seeing with my experience.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. It's a pattern I'm also seeing. We talk in our team, we talk a lot about multiplayer mode, is how we describe it, where you have like you say, sort of centrally governed style platform, but also allow teams to contribute to the platform. So it's not putting all that load on that small platform team. As Lena mentioned, you can have people contributing into the platform, so it becomes more democratized in that way and multiplayer is how we tend to think about it. Okay, we are fast running out of time. So I'm going to ask you all to give me one, maybe two sentences, quick prediction, and then we'll open up for a few questions from the audience. So, quick prediction. What do we see, how do we imagine platform engineering will look in 2 years' time? Shweta, you've got the mic, you can go first.
And you want short answer?
Short, please.
Okay. Short one is I can see platform engineering is on the same trajectory as we have seen DevOps. From concept to movement to reality, it's on similar trajectory. But what I would like to see is more of consolidation of efforts, more of experience building, because future doesn't belong to those who just build fast with the AI. Future belongs to those who build experience, even for the engineers and the developers alike, so that it works for business, because it will accelerate for them, the business, and of course for the engineers. So that's my 2 cents.
So AI is not taking our jobs, right? We need to build experience in.
Yeah.
Okay. Lena, what do you think? 2 years' time?
Okay. 2 years' time, I think platform as a product will be fairly standard
Oh, man, I
across
wish.
the board.
I feel like I've been talking about it forever.
But also, I think I would like a platform and any general platform within an organisation to be seen as an inner source platform. So contributed to by all the engineers and also used by the engineers. So much more democratic, but also owned collectively. So it doesn't just belong to the platform team. It belongs to all engineers.
I did see there was a little video that Shweta did with someone, I know Abby Bangser, who's awesome, and Abby talks about platform consumers and producers, and the platform should be the marketplace, and everyone should be able to add things to the platform, and everything should be able to consume things from the platform, which I think is quite nice. Nikki, wrap us up.
So I hope that platform as a product will be standard in 2 years' time. I think what I think we'll see in about 2 years is more composable platforms. So I think we'll be at a place where people can compose different platforms together from different types of technologies. So I'm hoping that that's where we'll be. And I have to throw AI in there a little bit because no one has. So let me throw it in. I do think AI will play a certain role. I don't think it's going to necessarily take over our jobs, but I think it is going to help to, for example, maybe build better infrastructure, even help the platform engineers to build better types of infrastructure. Okay. And if I go a little bit further out, I think platform engineers may have to actually even create AI agents when we get to that point to help.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Super, thank you. Okay, we've got a few minutes left, so we'll take any audience questions. And I think Izzy has the mic to run around.
You mentioned around building a platform for hybrid infrastructure, and that you haven't yet found a platform to be able to cope with this kind of architecture. What are the issues with existing platforms that make them not suitable?
I'll give you one example. There is security compliance, there is regulation. Every company has its own way of tackling with that, and it's all complex. It's never easy in organizations. And weaving that into your platform engineering space, even if you are speeding up with the templates and infrastructure complexity hiding, if still your workflow takes 14 days to approve the entire thing and your team's engineers are waiting to get that infrastructure or those accounts or those things to work with, it slows things down. So somebody needs to look into those complexities is what I meant. There are siloed things as well, and even if siloed processes we keep aside for a moment, it's quite complex in terms of hybrid. If you're just solving it for them for one component which is sitting on, let's say, cloud, but there's another component which is sitting on the private cloud or somewhere else, then that doesn't solve. It again slows down. So that's what I meant by that today these things are not getting even looked into, or somebody is attempting to solve them holistically.
So I spent the past year helping establish and build out a platform team and faced a lot of friction. You mentioned a lot of things that really would have helped with some of that. Platform as a product is an amazing, I'm fully bought into that. We need a product owner for these things, and so on. But another thing about producing a product is getting people to want it. So do you have any ideas or tips about, I guess, marketing that product internally to the people who have to use it?
I'll start and then pass on. No, not want to hold it. In my mind, I would like us to be more innovative and creative in this space. Imagine the way creators are fueling Netflix, LinkedIn, Instagram, Amazon partners are themselves empowering and using. So Amazon need not go anywhere and say that, no, use my platform, because it is made by them, it's their products in there. So we need to be really innovative in our internal platform space as well. How do we make it created by people and used by people? So we need to be, experimenting in that space. And that's where I'll give one example quickly, which is Apple's case study I have detailed in my book also. Imagine Apple or any other Samsung Galaxy and all those spaces where App Store does that role. So they've created a platform, App Store. Who's building the apps? Someone else. Who's using the apps? Someone else. But it's all getting fueled through that platform, right? So we need to be really that's why I say that mirror the experience of internal platforms as you would do for business platforms. Don't treat them secondary. Treat them primary. Have your platform strategy, have your technology strategy, and then it'll really push.
I think my first question would be, do they actually want, is there actually a market for the product that you've deployed, or that you're pushing? So I would want to make sure that, and I've learned the hard way too many times, we've seen it from a platform engineering perspective. Oh my God, this is such a great thing. Let's do this. The engineers will love it. They don't. And you're still there trying to get it adopted, kind of months later, even though it may be a good idea. So going back to that platform as a product, I think you need to, or we all do, have really open communication, I think, with our customers and with our engineers. We're incredibly lucky we work in the same company as our customers. And so we need to actually kind of work really hard to get that information and to create those relationships so that when you are then kind of sharing a new product, it's one, they already know that it's coming, and two, it's something that they actually need and it is filling a void.
There's definitely a challenge I've seen where platform engineers are themselves engineers and they're building for engineers, but there's a trap, an easy trap to fall into of, well, I'm an engineer and I know what I want, so I'm going to build that because obviously that's what all these other engineers are going to need, without ever actually asking them what they're going to need.
You've made my point for me.
Sorry, Nikki.
No, but actually I think asking some different questions sometimes to engineers can be quite helpful. So one of the things which is an interesting question to ask is, what's the thing that's holding you back the most? And if you could change one thing in your job, what would it be? And often those type of questions that don't actually be asked, and you'll be very surprised sometimes with the type of answers that come back. So I think oftentimes maybe as platform teams we think, oh, it must be CI/CD, it must be the standard things that as a platform engineer you would try and solve. But it's not necessarily what the developers are needing to do. So one of the examples that we had with one of our clients was that they said, well, actually we can't speak to, we can't move to the new platform because we can't speak to the microservices in the old data center. So if you can solve that, great, then suddenly we can move forward. And that was the area to focus on, which is not maybe what we thought we would focus on in the beginning, but that was part of the key to actually make it something that they wanted to use.
I'm just checking the time, and it looks like it's afternoon tea time. So I think with that, I'll say a big thank you to all of our panelists.